pleasing to you for the praise and glory of your name. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Deacon. Welcome everyone to round 2 of our senior thesis presentations. Hope you guys enjoyed last night. Our 6 presentations were incredible, and I believe you guys are in for another treat tonight. And so kicking us off right away with our first presentation, answering the question, is technology the thief of childhood, is Romina Vieses.
Is technology the thief of childhood? In almost every house we've been, we've watched them gaping at the screen. They sit and stare and stare and sit until they're hypnotized by it. But did you ever stop to think what this does to your beloved top? It rots the senses in the head, it kills imagination dead. It makes the child so dull and blind, he cannot think, he only sees. While this excerpt captures only a glimpse of the fawn, this Oompa Loompa song in Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory serves as more than just a playful and satirical song. It acts as a moral lesson highlighting the consequences of a behavior, in this case, excessive television watching. Though written decades ago, Dahl's words about the dangers of television resonate even more powerfully today. While the television once symbolized mindless entertainment, it now seems almost innocent compared to the addictive nature of modern technology. Dahl's lesson is that technology is not just a harmless distraction, it is a thief of childhood. The vivid imagery of children's eyes popping out from staring at a screen captures the painful reality. His words are a poetic cry for urgency, reminding society that if we allow screens to dominate childhood, we risk raising a generation incapable of dreaming, imagining, and engaging with the world in meaningful and imaginative ways. If Roald Dahl were here, what horror would he feel with the presence of portable digital devices that follow children around? Dahl mentions the tempting benefits of screens, admitting how it keeps them still and allows parents to cook the lunch and wash the dishes in the sink. It truly is a simple solution to the chaos of parenting, but the heart of the song is, did you ever stop to think, to wonder just exactly what this does to your beloved Tom? It isn't simply about what technology offers, but about what it takes away. This solution comes at a high cost, compromising the active and creative side of kids. Dahl humorously suggests that books fill the shelves and the TV is thrown away, but his solution is a deeper call to action, restoring childhood itself. Screens no longer passively entertain, they actively manipulate. His poem is a mirror of our current crisis, making us consider not only the presence of technology in children's lives, but also the possibility of irreversible consequences. This brings me to my question. Has technology taken away the essence of childhood, and what are the consequences? I say yes. Technology has not only taken away the essence of childhood, but has reshaped it with profound consequences, affecting children's mental, physical, and social development. To fully understand this transformation, it is important to define what is meant by technology in the context of this thesis. It refers specifically to screen-based devices equipped with internet, social media, and apps. This includes iPads, smartphones, tablets, laptops, and gaming systems such as PlayStation or Xbox, all of which are increasingly embedded in the daily routines of children. To truly understand what has been lost, we must define what childhood once was. Playing outside was one of the only many options. Playing outside was the only option. It meant waking up, knocking on your neighbor's door, and playing until sundown. Games of hide and seek, bike ride competitions, jump roping, hopscotch, and red faces from the sun. It was all about letting the imagination free and finding joy in the simple things. The rise of technology happened fast. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, children aged 2 to 7 spend an average of 3.5 hours per day using electronics. Children aged 8 and up can reach up to 7 hours daily. These findings suggest that 87% of children exceed screen time recommendations from the American Pediatric Academy. The sad reality, as Nicholas Kardaras, a psychologist, addiction expert, and author of Go Kid, puts it, a kid's brain on tech looks like a brain on drugs. Dr. Peter Webro, director of neuroscience at UCLA, calls it electric cocaine because excessive screen exposure can neurologically damage a child's developing brain. This happens through the rise of dopamine levels. Dopaminergic behaviors increase dopamine levels, telling the person to repeat the behavior and get the feel-good reward. Video games, YouTube, or social media increase dopamine by 100%. Another important neurological factor is myelination, which helps our brains work efficiently. A healthy brain myelinates most early in childhood. For example, when an infant is exposed to a language, the neural pathways devoted to language myelinate and become hardwired. However, myelin is easily disrupted by unhealthy stimulation, leading to the inability to focus, generate emotions, and distinguish reality. Bartzolke's study found that a 45-year-old cocaine addict had the same amount of white matter as a 19-year-old exposed to text since he was just a little kid. And to think we've handed this electronic cocaine to the youngest and most vulnerable. ADHD, addiction, anxiety, depression, aggression, and even psychosis are all byproducts of this digital drug. Cordaris talks about patients with game transfer phenomenon, a form of psychotic break when excessive video gaming, often combined with sleep deprivation, blurs the line between what's real and what's fantasy. One patient was visibly scared, confused, and hyperventilating, suffering derealization, not knowing what's going on, and depersonalization, not having a sense of himself. He had to be stabilized with antipsychotics and psychotherapy. Cordaris highlights other instances where children may enter trance-like states, showing psychosis-like symptoms such as hallucinations. Kids today are constantly overstimulated by screens, and their once healthy brains are at risk of serious mental problems. We used to worry about the crazy things kids did outside, like jumping off swings midair. Now we should be worried about what happens indoors, sitting too still, moving too little, and staring too long. Sleep loss is a major impact of technology. Children need 9 to 12 hours of sleep to function properly. In reality, kids are getting an average of 6. Blue light, especially at night, delays melatonin, keeping children wide awake. This confuses the body, shifts the circadian rhythm, and leads to poor rest. Screen time also affects vision. Kids spend hours staring at screens close to their faces. Asynophia or IPAD brings symptoms like headaches and blurry visions. A study showed that children who spent at least 40 minutes outdoors each day had a lower risk of developing myopia. Natural light supports good vision, while indoor screen use increases vision problems. That's why we see 5-year-olds today with strong prescriptions. Myopia can even lead to blindness or permanent visual impairment. Furthermore, long-term exposure to radiation could cause cancer. This radiation is called non-ionizing radiofrequency. The National Institutes of Health showed that it only took 15 minutes of screen time to increase activity in brain cells. For some context, increased activity is a nice academic way to say cook the brain cells. Further research done at Harvard showed a potential correlation between electromagnetic fields, exposure, and autism. Childhood used to be about running outside and playing. Now kids spend hours lying down, staring at screens, and mindlessly eating. The Center for Disease Control states that approximately 1 in 5 U.S. children have obesity. In 2020, 20.7% of kids aged 6 to 11 were obese, with tech use as a key factor. The importance of physical activity cannot be stressed enough. Playing sports helps develop memory, focus, and problem solving. For example, tennis is a sport that requires strategic thinking, quick decision-making, and hand-eye coordination. These habits, when formed early, impact development in incredible ways, but constant scrolling and gaming offer none of these benefits. Kids need social connection as much as they need oxygen. Not getting human connection and nurturing support during childhood can lead to profound emotional and psychological problems. According to Cardaris, being social creatures, we find purpose and meaning and bolster our emotional stage largely through the social and cultural context created by contact with others. Kids are forgetting how to interact and are only interacting with screens. The issue isn't that they use screens to talk to friends or family, it's that screens are replacing on-person interaction. In The Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt shows how children have fewer relationships and no desire to play with others. They glue themselves to digital device until they go to sleep. In adolescence, they hide behind the phone and never develop a personality or connect or have a real connection. They isolate themselves due to social media comparisons. This isolation can break both friendships and families. The online world is very toxic and scary, and children need their community to grow into people who can love, care, trust, and communicate. Aristotle said that community is essential for good life. But when everything happens through a screen, it is hard to find a sense of belonging. Some argue that technology is a great educational tool. They claim that education is broken and it can only be fixed with the addition of technology in classrooms. However, those people who claim that the solution is technology in classrooms are those who are making millions in iPad distributions. So the real question is, are these people cashing out at the expense of kids' learning and their well-being? Greg Graham, an educator, not a technology representative, says, "There never has, nor will there ever be, a more dynamic learning context than a face-to-face in close proximity. Digital resources make it hard for children to stay engaged and focused in a classroom where learning takes time and patience. No app can replace a teacher. Many educational games are not truly educational. Kids get hooked on the entertainment and the competition. Apps claim to teach, but most content is surface level and hard to apply outside a digital setting. These tools train kids to expect graphics, constant stimulation, and rewards, and instant rewards. So these all-powerful tools are actually hindering children's unique creativity at such an early point in life." John Piaget once said, "The first 12 years of life are spent putting into place the structures of knowledge that enable young people to grasp abstract, metaphoric, and symbolic types of information. Screens only interrupt that development." In conclusion, we all wish for a modern world, and we got it, filled with technology, and we got it. But we forgot to think about what it would cost. It stripped away the roots of what life is all about, childhood. We've given our children tools they're now dependent on, and now they look down instead of up. These devices have made today's and future generations lose the ability to reminisce on the best years of their lives. Technology may offer children a brand new world, but it takes away their ability to fully be present in it, bringing mental, physical, and social consequences. Roald Dahl's song wasn't just a warning, it's become our reality. Thank you. I now stand for objections.
That was a super presentation. What do you think of Wii Sports? And do you think that on, for example, a rainy day, that would be one of the better options for a kid to be if they were going to be on a screen?
Well, thank you for your question. As for Wii Sports, and I know that there's virtual reality gaming tools that allow you to, for example, play tennis as you're standing up, but you're still in this virtual reality world. As for that, I do think that it shouldn't really be an option, especially if it's a sunny day outside. I don't think that should be justified. However, maybe in very certain circumstances, I guess that could be fine, just because it's not excessive use. But other than that, I think that you should take advantage of the outside and use Wii Sports. Thank you.
Okay, that was a really good presentation. I agree with most of the things you said. That was the sound of Duolingo, which a lot of people use through a form of technology to learn different languages. And I agree with you on how younger kids, such as, ages 9 and below, should not get iPads. But how would you respond to the objection that no matter really who you are, an app like Duolingo on the screen can be tremendously helpful to inspire learning and help learn languages?
Thank you for your question. Like I said, those educational apps, they're not very educational in the long run. It might help for learning how to say hi, cat, dog, maybe in another language, but if you truly want to learn another language, there are other tools, maybe speaking with other people of that country that don't necessarily require technology. But thank you.
Very well done, Romina. I thought your slides were incredibly beautiful as well. You very much sold your thesis to me. I'm totally convinced. Given some of the statistics you were bringing forth and the experts calling it, cocaine, it was similar to cocaine in its effects, exact wording. Would you go kind of the next step and say that it's so dangerous for young people's development that it's actually a health hazard wherein the government should step in and place meaningful restrictions on screen? I don't know what exactly it looks like, but would you advocate for government intervention to prevent children from excessive screen use in young ages?
Thank you for your question. So I definitely would advocate for that just because I think there are many, like, there should be at least a handbook that states like a sort of risk that could lead to this. I mentioned some extreme cases, but even like depression and anxiety and ADHD, they're all very, they can be very problematic. So I do think that they should state that at least for age-wise. Just because, like I mentioned, I do think technology can be a great tool, but it's just not like in a childhood, it shouldn't really be a thing. And I definitely think that governments should at least talk to like tech companies to reinforce sort of like a policy or a handbook declaring all of these potential risks. Thank you.
Lawrence.
Great presentation, Romina. Do you think there's ever a time for technology to play a role in the formation and education of children, or should we resort back to the older methods of learning?
So I definitely think that we should resort back to thank you, by the way, we should resort back to the older methods of learning, especially just because I think that, as I mentioned, children, well, people and children in particular, they're in their developmental years. And I don't think that technology should replace that, which is the problem that it is today. Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, our next presenter this evening will be addressing the question, is family vlogging an acceptable job? Please join me in welcoming Leanna Freitas to the podium.
Elle goes on her first date. Suspended from school, we've never seen Everly this nervous. These are just a few examples of the flashy, clickbait headlines you'll see on videos by some of the most famous family vloggers today. Whether a channel reviews products, teaches DIY crafts, or documents everyday life, the ultimate goal for most creators is profit. And while that might seem obvious, it's rarely ever admitted, especially not by those making money off their children. For many of us, our childhoods are filled with private, meaningful memories. Learning to ride a bike, first days of school, silly arguments with siblings. But for a rising number of children, those private moments are turned into content. Every week, a vlog is posted. Every day, their lives are filmed. Every emotion, real or fake, is uploaded for the world to see. That brings me to my thesis question. Is family vlogging an acceptable job? Tonight, I will explain why I believe it is not. I'll define the necessary key terms such as vlogging and family vlogging. Next, walk through the three major problems. The danger of online harassment, how children are being exploited and overworked, and how it creates strained relationships within the family. I will then address an objection according to the House Bill 322, and finish with a reflection rooted in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. First, let's define what we're talking about. A vlog, short for video blog, is, quote, a form of online content that combines visual storytelling with the personality of its creator, end quote. Vlogs are done for a variety of purposes, from entertainment to education to comedy. There are no limits. Furthermore, a family vlog is, quote, a subgenre where the creator shares their family's daily life, and more often than not, their children's personal experiences, end quote. Family vlogs include birthdays, vacations, and even doctor's visits. Ultimately, no child is safe when it comes to family vlogging, but I will get more into that later. The first known vlog dates back to the year 2000, when Adam Contrast uploaded a 15-second clip to his blog. As platforms like YouTube grew, so did this genre, especially after YouTube's launch in 2005. In just 6 months, the site was getting 100 million views a day. family vlogging took off and has yet to stop. Though the genre has been receiving a lot of criticism over the years, since 2017, viewing times for family vloggers has increased by 90%, and it has continued to rise to this day. But every family is different. Take, for example, the Shaytards, the bottom picture. They are a Mormon family from Idaho with nearly 5 million subscribers. For over a decade, they filmed everything: first days of school, family vacations, and even the full birth of their youngest child. And they claim they have no regrets. This business has brought them a fortune and endless opportunities. But not every story ends well. Consider the case of the 8 passengers, the top picture. They are a family channel run by Ruby Frankie and her husband, Kevin Frankie. What started as relatable family of 8 content back in 2015 and then quickly rose to fame turned dark. After a couple of years of regularly posting, Ruby was accused of extreme, even abusive parenting, like admitting to taking away her son's bed for 7 months and refusing to pack lunch for her 6-year-old daughter after she forgot. Ruby then says in that video, quote, "Hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch," end quote. The viewers grew so concerned about her parenting methods that they started calling Child Protective Services, but the cases were quickly closed. Even the oldest daughter, Sherry Frankie, had been trying for years to save her siblings. She writes in her book, The House of My Mother, A Daughter's Quest for Freedom, quote, "Countless warnings had already been sent to the Division of Child and Family Services, to law enforcement, by me and by concerned neighbors. I've been shouting from the rooftops for a year, yet despite the glaring signs of trouble, no action had been taken," end quote. In 2022, Ruby joined Jody Hildebrand, therapist and life coach, in her podcast Connections, and they soon became business partners. They would give methods on how to handle bad behavior in children. After a year, both of them started to physically abuse the 2 youngest children, the boy 12 and the girl 10. They would deprive them of food and water because they saw these things as privileges. Also, chain their limbs together and separate them in closets for months at a time. Until one day, the boy escaped through a window and found help from a neighbor. These women started as counselor and client, became business partners and roommates, to now facing up to 30 years in prison. These are not isolated cases. They are red flags waving at the reality behind the polished thumbnails and cheerful music. First and foremost, family vlogging endangers the privacy and safety of the children involved. Every time the camera turns on, a child's personal moment becomes public property, and there is no going back to a normal life. Whether it's a puberty appointment or a private talk with their parents, nothing is off limits. The children lose a significant amount of privacy to their extended family, friends, and most terrifying of all, strangers. The University of Chicago warns that these intimate details make children extremely vulnerable. Friends, teachers, strangers, even predators can now access the most sensitive parts of their lives. And studies from the Prowler News show that many of the channels have a large percentage of middle-aged male viewers. Parents are carelessly providing a plethora of information about their children. Children who are mostly too young to understand the concept of vlogging and being on YouTube. They are told it is a fun way to cherish memories that will last a lifetime. But that lifetime also involves millions of people from around the world. The post tells how, quote, "Over the years, vlog families have begun receiving backlash for making private moments public, such as a fight between siblings or disciplinary action," end quote. This is because people leave cruel comments and spread rumors for the sake of embarrassing them. And when kids grow up in this environment, the effects are lasting. Anxiety, depression, and stress become normal. Because they're never truly alone, they're always on display. Secondly, family vlogging exploits and overworks children. Once a video goes viral, the family becomes a business, and the children, they're the employees. For vloggers, every moment a child has, big or small, is looked at as a $. People click back to the family's page to see that hectic lifestyle. So the more emotion and entertainment the children give for the camera, the more views the video gets, which brings in more money. Sherry Frankie revealed that she and her siblings were paid in toys, shopping trips, or even just vacations. But the harsh truth is that those rewards were bought using the money their own labor generated. The constant need to produce the perfect video and get the right face puts immense pressure on the children to perform. And the younger the child, the less likely they are able to understand they're even working. So the parents end up taking advantage of them. They're told to smile for the camera, cry when prompted, and just be yourself, as long as that self gets clicks. Sherry said in her statement with Fox News, quote, "It is a full-time job with employees, business credit cards, managers, and marketing strategies. The difference between family blogging and a normal business, however, is that the employees are all the children." Fortunately, laws are starting to change. House Bill 322, which, quote, "requires parents of child performers, including children featured in family blogs, to deposit 15% of their child's income in a trust. The legislation also establishes a pathway for adults to remove social media content they starred in as kids," end quote. As more and more families are being exposed on their fake videos, the more caution states have taken to protect the children. Because the real problem isn't just the money, it's the message. Your value comes from your performance. Third, family blogging strains relationships, especially between siblings. The more kids you have, the more content you can produce. That's not a theory, it's how many channels operate. Certainly, no parent is going to admit that they are open to more children because it can bring in more money. But it does not stop strangers from commenting and making videos about this allegation. Take the LeBrant family, a Christian family that started small back in 2016 with Savannah the mother, Cole the father, and Everly the oldest. But as their family grew, so did their following. And with that growth came backlash. Viewers began claiming that the older daughter, Everly, was being pushed aside for the new babies. People post entire videos titled, quote, "Poor Everly," end quote, or, quote, "Times she got treated differently," end quote. She's just a child. Now she has read hateful comments about her family, made by strangers who think they know her life, even though she has made videos herself stating that she is happy and loves all her siblings. But what happens when a child starts to believe those lies? It creates resentment toward their siblings and toward their parents. The hardest part of this is that the parents may never notice what is happening to their kids, but it will forever affect each child in a different manner. Some may argue that laws like House Bill 322 are enough, that they make blogging safer and more structured. This bill has already been passed in Illinois, Minnesota, and is getting worked on in Utah, Idaho, and Ohio. If this bill is passed in all the states, it will protect kids in entertainment from the start of their vlog career to whenever they want to stop. Through this bill, family blogging can be recognized as a legitimate profession if it keeps its labor protections. And that way, it could keep the family balanced between a healthy amount of content creation while still respecting the children's rights. Although this is a good start, let's be realistic. Regulating the money does not regulate the emotional toll. A child can't give informed consent to being filmed every day. It should also not only be focused on the effort the child must put in, but the fact that these videos will be online forever, even with the protections in place. House Bill 322 ensures payment. It doesn't ensure mental well-being, long-term safety, or dignity. Bill or no bill, it will not stop families from prioritizing content over genuine family time. As Catholics, we believe that children are gifts, not content. The Catechism of the Catholic Church offers clear guidance in paragraph 2492. Quote, "Everyone should observe an appropriate reserve concerning persons' private lives. Those in charge of communications should maintain a fair balance between the requirements of the common good and respect for individual rights. Interference by the media in the private lives of persons engaged in political or public activity is to be condemned to the extent that it infringes upon their privacy and freedom," end quote. By exposing personal experiences through blogging, the parents negligently compromise the dignity of each member of the family. In other words, just because you can share it doesn't mean you should. And the Catechism serves as a reminder that the well-being of the family should take priority over the pursuit of fame and financial gain. Family should be a place of love, growth, and protection, not a stage. Let me end with the words of Sherry Frankie from her memoir I mentioned earlier. Quote, "Mom, I feel like you don't care about me. You never answer the phone when I call, but I know you're always talking to Jody. I feel like you don't love me," end quote. And later, quote, "I don't want to be anything like her. I won't exploit them the way she did," end quote. These aren't the words of a teenager looking for attention. They are the words of a child whose trust, privacy, and emotional safety were sacrificed for content. Social media will only continue to grow its platforms, and more families will be tempted to try blogging as a harmless way to make money. But I argue that it is not acceptable, because behind the cameras, the ring lights, and the thumbnails of innocent children, they are the ones who are being harassed, exploited, and sometimes even abused. So if you want to give your children a good, wholesome, and safe life, then family blogging is not the right path. Thank you, and I now stand for questions.
Mr. Fairchild. Really, really good. Very interesting. Here's my question. If we know that putting a child in front of a camera for a vlog harms them, and you argue that the government should regulate that, if we also know that putting screens in front of children harms children, do you think the government should be able to regulate parents putting a screen in front of their child's face? Thank you.
Thank you for your objection. Yes, I totally agree that the government, I feel like the government has already taken some part in putting limits towards parents for screen times, like on tablets and phones and any device. There are screen times that parents can put to minimize the screen time for their children. So I think that this is a great step towards minimizing the danger of, in this case, putting a screen in front of the child. It endangers them of seeing something maybe not appropriate, they're not old enough, they shouldn't be looking at. So I do think the government is headed in the right direction through these little like applications that are already within these devices. Thank you.
Ms. Young.
That was an excellent presentation, Leanna. I learned a lot, and it was done so in a very compelling way, and in a beautifully described way. At the heart of your issue seems to be exploitation of children for work, right? Would you say that could also be applied in a kind of vlogging style, where what if there were a child who could, I don't know, had a talent for painting or creating, arts and crafts, or doing something that we ordinarily think of as a healthier activity, but would you also apply the same kind of regulations or see the same kind of concerns of over exploiting, say, a 10-year-old who might have a skill that could be marketable?
Thank you for your objection. I do think you could take a sort of different path, maybe not so aggressive as vlogging, because vlogging is more like your reality, your everyday step, your 24 hours that are being filmed and edited and posted, where for a talent, I don't see such as harm as maybe posting a picture of your child's artwork with them in it, and because that, it's really focused on the artwork, where vlogs is focused on their entire life. So when posting their talents, that's really the only thing you know about the child. Where in vlogs, you know what instruments they play, what sports they do, what friends they have, and that can really become a problem. Thank you.
Leanna, I don't have an objection to your thesis. It was fantastic, really well done. I want to flip it around the other way. People don't make money on this unless there are other people watching this stuff. And the vlogging is part of a larger cultural thing, like it began with, say, reality TV. This fascination with seeing the real life experience that people don't have. In our school, we try to get people to enjoy fiction, where we can just represent it. Like you can read Tale of Two Cities, but you don't really want to see the real Sydney Carton, right? So what's this all about our culture? What have you kind of thought about is happening here, that we have this desire to see everybody's private life now in reality instead of just fiction?
Yes, thank you for that. I do think, not even blogging, but just social media, our society has become very comparable. Like, how does my body look compared to hers? How is my life? Am I better at this sport than her? And so with vlogging, I think for moms, I feel like if they see this mom who has these 8 really happy children and her children are fighting all the time or they're arguing, she's gonna, feel pressure to be better. And so vlogging or any type of content where you're constantly producing and posting stuff about your life becomes harmful to everyone around you because it's a way for others to compare. And maybe you're comparing your life and you're making it seem like your life is perfect when it's really not, which is also harmful. Thank you.
Lawrence, hold on.
Great presentation, Leanna. I learned a lot. How do you answer the objection that the family vloggers you mentioned in your presentation failed in taking the necessary steps to center their channel around God? And when a family vlogger takes the necessary steps appropriately, family vlogging can actually be a means of evangelization and a way of providing advice and tips for how to raise a family.
Thank you for your objection. Yes, I think if your channel is focused around evangelization and not so much reality and everyday life of your kids, then it can seem as a great way to evangelize, especially as social media grows. But you still have to take the necessary means to not overly expose your child.
Great job.
All right, our next presenter this evening will be addressing the question, is Barbie an authentic representation and icon of true femininity? Please welcome Gianna Camposano to the podium.
Who comes to mind when I mention the color pink, a dream house, multiple careers, a huge closet, and Ken? Ideally, the first image that comes to mind is the glamorous fashion doll Barbie. On the other hand, who comes to mind when I refer to the qualities such as purity, maternal love, grace, and humility? I hope you envision Mary, various female saints, or other feminine role models in your life. However, these two questions highlight an underlying difference between the two sets of descriptions. Before I continue, let us take a look at this quote from Robin Gerber in her book, Barbie, Her Inspiration, History, and Legacy. Quote, "An icon that invites imagination through not only playing with her or collecting her, but even being her." End quote. Barbie has become a household name and an icon of femininity for many. However, the doll remains a controversial topic for both Christians and non-Christians due to her beauty and body standards and her values. Barbie, an enduring figure for girls, evolves with the times. Nevertheless, Barbie's relativity with the times opposes the reality that there is an objective truth to the identity of a woman. The definition of womanhood is an unchangeable reality. This raises the question, is Barbie an authentic representation and icon of true femininity? I argue no. To answer this question, I will first go through background information, then the relationship between men and women as established by God. I will explain my support for the thesis claim by defining true femininity according to Catholicism. Then I will explain what the Barbie doll represents and the message it promotes. Finally, I will answer objections. In 1945, Ruth and Elliot Handler co-founded Mattel, a toy company. In the 1950s, Ruth observed that young girls, including her daughter Barbara, preferred playing with paper dolls and desired to imitate adult life. The idea of Barbie was born. She decided to create this doll with the likeness of a real teenage girl, which was never done before. However, Ruth faced criticism that mothers would not buy daughters an adult-looking doll. She hired marketing expert Dr. Ernest Ditcher, who marketed the doll as a teenage fashion model. This was revolutionary, as teens were not expected to be in the workforce at that time. The doll changed how girls approached role-playing and growing up, potentially leading to concerns. As Robin Gerber suggests, quote, "Girls no longer saw dolls as their babies, but as themselves," end quote. As the times progressed, the doll also evolved. Barbie began as a teenage fashion model, but going into the 1960s and 70s, which was the start of the sexual revolution and feminist movement, Barbie transformed into a career girl, reflecting the ambitions and evolving aspirations of women during that era. So, the Barbie brand created its official motto, "You can be anything," maintaining its relevance throughout the years. With the many choices Barbie provides, every girl's dreams, no matter the decade, can be realized. My first argument for why Barbie does not represent true femininity is based on the relationship between men and women per God's design. According to Catholicism, men and women have equal dignity but different roles. There is a complementary difference between them, which indicates that they are oriented to one another. In Genesis chapter 2, God created Eve, the first woman, out of Adam, the first man. Though different, when a man and women are joined into the sacramental union of marriage, they become one body and create a special bond. Which brings me to Ken. As stated by Mia Brett in her article on the history of Barbie, quote, "Handler made conscious choices to keep Barbie's identity away from those of wife and mother by releasing Ken as a boyfriend, not a husband," end quote. The Ken doll is not the typical man in the relationship. While Ken has no career and no house, Barbie has all the careers imaginable and the dream house. However, this was a controversial move in the 60s, since women were supposed to be housewives and mothers, while the men worked and provided for the family. In the Barbie world, the roles are reversed. In the live-action film Barbie, Ken is portrayed as dependent on Barbie for identity and purpose. While Barbie treats him as a friend, Ken struggles with feelings of insignificance and eventually adopts a toxic form of masculinity in an attempt to assert himself. The film highlights how feminist culture can impact both men and women, disrupting the balance between them. True femininity, however, can be defined as exemplifying the virtues of piety, maternity, self-sacrificial love, and humility. God has offered all women an exemplary model of femininity in the Virgin Mary. She humbly dedicated her life to surrendering to God's will by giving her fiat. Conversely, the feminist movement is anti-Mary, as it is fundamentally narcissistic. A woman's will is prioritized before anything else, even when it comes to having a career before children. Women believe they are making progress, but as Carrie Gress, author of Anti-Mary Exposed, mentions, quote, "For all the so-called progress women have made, there is precious little evidence that any of it has actually made women happier," end quote. Furthermore, Venerable Fulton Sheen emphasized that a society's virtue is often defined in the quality of its women, stating, quote, "The history of civilization could actually be written in terms of the level of its women," end quote. In The World's First Love, he argues that women shape culture by instilling morals in children, portraying motherhood, whether in marriage or religious life, as a path to sainthood through love and sacrifice. However, feminism historically has done the opposite by empowering women to become equal to men, which has led to a radical ideology promoting independence from men and a subsequent deterioration of society as a whole. Barbie cannot be seen as an icon of true femininity because the doll does not emphasize motherhood, marriage, or children, which are crucial aspects to the essence of womanhood as created by God. In 2003, Mattel introduced the Happy Family line with Midge, a pregnant doll, her husband Alan, and their toddler Ryan. However, it became controversial because some parents feared it might promote teen pregnancy or single motherhood, since the dolls were sold separately. Although the line aimed to represent a family, Mattel discontinued it rather than using it to support family values or encourage nurturing skills in girls. Lastly, my third argument as to why Barbie is not an icon of true femininity draws from the definition of feminine success in the world according to Barbie. Success for women is defined by materialistic and superficial possessions that society deems as achievements, such as securing any career and acquiring the ideal house, car, and wardrobe. However, as Catholics, we should practice prudence and avoid excess. In addition, women are not meant for every career imaginable, and the same goes for men. As Carrie Gress describes, quote, "Women certainly can be, and often are heroic, but their true heroism is usually expressed in ways more in keeping their nurture, in imitating Mary rather than men," end quote. Modern feminism encourages women to enter the workforce. However, in striving for equality, some may feel pressured to abandon their authentic femininity to be seen as the same as men. The earliest ideology of feminism is the sameness of men and women, not the equality as seen in Genesis chapter 2. Gress describes this as, quote, "The worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal," end quote. This quote sums up what modern feminism is and can be clearly seen with the Barbie doll. Secular feminism, which the Barbie doll embodies, consists of girl power, which diminishes any success of a male and sees it as sexist if women do not attain more power. The ideology of feminism has positioned men against women, leading to the idea that men must step aside so women can rise above them. The portrayal of Barbie as a successful, mistake-free figure contrasts with Ken's lack of purpose and vocation, leading to the conclusion that Barbie's version of feminism is distorted. Finally, with Barbie's culture, the body is objectified rather than stewarding it as a temple of the Holy Spirit. This is seen in the 1965 Slumber Party Barbie doll, which came with a scale set to 110 and a book on how to lose weight. Gress discusses a concept from Dostoevsky, quote, "Beauty will save the world," end quote. She argues the authentic beauty he refers to lies in virtues and talents given by God, not in vanity. Some might object to my thesis by arguing that the Barbie doll stands as a role model of femininity for those that do not know of Catholicism and Mary. Therefore, considering that girls are left with improper role models, Barbie can provide the best example. The Barbie doll can inspire them. In response to this objection, little girls should not play with Barbie for the purpose of idolizing her. Barbie is a toy, which serves the purpose of enhancing creativity and imagination. Unfortunately, little girls today that lack virtuous feminine role models in their lives cannot help but imitate Barbie. This poses an issue, as it can lead girls to take on the modern feminist approach that women need no one. In conclusion, is Barbie an icon of true femininity? I answer no. Rather than imitating the mutual respect and complementarity of men and women, Barbie encourages women's dominance over and independence from men. Women will find peace in their souls only when they say yes, when they give their fiats, as Mary did, to their God-given nature. This is actually beautifully portrayed at the end of the Barbie movie, when Barbie meets her creator and says yes to the true meaning of being a woman. I now stand for questions.
Martha.
Good job, Gianna. That was a great presentation. So you talked a lot about the new Barbie movie, but I was wondering, so in Barbie Life in the Dream House, it's a lot different. Like Ken kind of has a role in like, he does a bunch of stuff for Barbie, he fixes her car and like builds a water slide and does some like work, you know? So I was wondering if you thought that the character of Barbie in Barbie Life in the Dream House is a good icon for femininity.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Because she's very like kind to everybody. She never says anything mean, and she's like raises her sisters, and she does like she's a very nice person. So do you think she's a good role model?
Thank you for your question, Martha. I do think she's a better version of what true femininity is supposed to be, but because she acts like a mother and yeah. But I do think she does represent a little bit of what I was talking about, the superficial success and material success, because she focuses a lot on her vanity and the dream house and just the big closet that she has. And with her relationship with Ken, I do think it's a better relationship that they have and like more ordered to what it's supposed to be, but I do still think that Ken deserves a little bit more. Thank you.
Well done, Gianna. Tying in perhaps what we learned from Patrick's presentation last night and your very thorough argument of why Barbie does not portray authentic femininity, do you think it would be unjust or sinful for somebody to work for Mattel, specifically like in the Barbie marketing or design production team?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Yankee. I don't think it's inherently bad that they work for Mattel or if you buy a Barbie doll, as long as you stay true to what you believe in, like with the Catholic values, and you don't let their feminist agenda take the better of you. Thank you.
Hi, Gianna. That was a great presentation. I thought it was very interesting. Especially how you tied in how it's kind of a joint false image, that it's not just the feminist perspective that's incorrect, it's also the male, so I really liked the bit about Ken. Would you say that, is this more of a cause, so this is a cause and effect question, is Barbie more the cause of like this disordered kind of image of a family that we have, or a result of society's like push in that direction?
Thank you for your question. I do think Barbie plays a big role, but also just feminism as a whole that has played a role in like deteriorating both the relationship between men and women and how it's supposed to be. Thank you.
John, nice job. In your research, did you explore the effects of boys playing with, say, like a G.I. Joe doll? And if so, what can a boy do to learn that he is enough and he's great at doing stuff?
Thank you for your question. I don't think it's bad that they play with a G.I. Joe. I think that's better than playing with a Ken doll. But I think it depends on, like, to learn about what true masculinity is, I think it depends on the parents and the adults that influence your formation. Thank you.
Great job, Gianna.
All right, now we're going to take a break and reconvene at 8:05.